Under the warm glow of the golden African sun, a sprawling mansion stood on a hill overlooking the city. Its tall glass windows reflected wealth and power, a symbol of one man's rise to unimaginable riches. That man was Charles Mwangi, a self-made billionaire whose empire stretched across real estate, technology, and luxury imports. From the outside, Charles appeared to have it all: money, influence, and a beautiful young wife named Isabel. But behind those glamorous walls, their marriage was slowly crumbling. When Charles and Isabel first met 7 years ago, she was breathtakingly stunning. She came from a modest background, working as a junior accountant in a small firm. Charles, then only a rising businessman, had been captivated by her quiet elegance and kind heart. He pursued her relentlessly, showering her with flowers, promises, and attention until she agreed to marry him. In the early years, they were inseparable. Isabel supported Charles through long nights of planning and strategy, often cooking meals for him while he worked late into the night. She believed in his dream even when others doubted him. Together, they built a life that seemed unshakable. But wealth changes people. As Charles's fortune grew, so did his arrogance. Business trips stretched longer, parties became wilder, and Isabel began to notice subtle changes in his behavior. He grew impatient, dismissive, and controlling. At first, it was little comments disguised as jokes. "You've been enjoying those pastries a bit too much, huh, darling?" he'd say with a smirk. Isabel would laugh it off, not realizing these remarks were seeds of something darker. Then came the parties where Charles would introduce her to his associates with a tone that stung. "This is my wife, Isabel," he'd say. "She's not into business, she's more into baking." His friends would laugh, and Isabel would force a smile, swallowing her humiliation. Over the years, Isabel put on weight. Stress, loneliness, and Charles's neglect pushed her into comfort eating. While she was still beautiful, Charles began to see her differently. He compared her to the glamorous women at his side during business functions. One evening, during a lavish gala at their mansion, Charles's cruelty reached a breaking point. Isabel had spent hours getting ready. She wore a flowing emerald green gown, her hair perfectly styled. She hoped that tonight would remind Charles of the woman he had fallen in love with. But as she descended the staircase, she overheard Charles laughing with his business partner. "My wife," Charles said, his voice dripping with mockery. Well, let's just say she's not the slender beauty I married. I told her to lay off the desserts, but you know women, they never listen." The room erupted with laughter. Isabel froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt naked, exposed, and utterly humiliated. When Charles noticed her standing there, his smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly covered it with a dismissive wave. "Ah, here she is. Isabel, darling, come meet the investors." Isabel managed to greet them politely, her face a mask of calm, but inside, something broke. That night, she cried alone in their massive bedroom, realizing that the man she once loved saw her not as a partner, but as a trophy he no longer valued. Months passed, and Charles's cruelty only worsened. He stopped coming home some nights, and when he did, he barely spoke to her. Isabel discovered receipts for expensive gifts and trips she hadn't received. The bitter truth settled in her mind: Charles was having affairs. One rainy afternoon, Isabel confronted him. "Charles, I know you've been unfaithful," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Charles didn't even deny it. "Look at you, Isabel," he sneered. "You've let yourself go. You expect me to come home to this? I need a woman who reflects my success." Tears burned Isabel's eyes, but she held her ground. "I stood by you when you had nothing," she said. "I believed in you when no one else did. And this is how you repay me?" Charles laughed coldly. "You should be grateful, Isabel. You live in luxury because of me. If you don't like it, you can leave, but you'll leave with nothing." Isabel felt the weight of his words like a crushing blow. She had no family, no job, and no savings. He controlled everything. For the first time, she saw the true extent of his manipulation. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Isabel made a vow. I will not be humiliated like this again. I will take back my power, no matter what it takes. Isabel began to change, quietly and strategically. She didn't argue with Charles anymore, nor did she confront him about his affairs. Instead, she focused on herself. She started exercising every morning, walking through their private garden, then jogging around the estate. She hired a personal trainer in secret, paying him from the small allowance Charles gave her for household expenses. At first, it was difficult. Her body ached, and she felt self-conscious, but she pushed through. She also changed her eating habits, swapping comfort foods for nourishing meals. With every pound she lost, she gained confidence. Her reflection in the mirror slowly began to match the strong, determined woman she felt inside. While Isabel worked on her physical transformation, she also educated herself. Late at night, while Charles slept or was out with other women, she studied finance and business. She watched videos, read books, and even enrolled in online courses. She learned how companies were structured, how investments worked, and how to build wealth independently. Charles, too arrogant to notice, assumed Isabel was simply being a quiet, submissive wife. Then, an unexpected opportunity arose. One evening, Charles hosted a dinner for potential investors. Isabel, now slimmer and radiant, moved gracefully among the guests, charming them with her wit and intelligence. Several investors were impressed by her insight into real estate trends, a skill she had carefully developed in secret. After the dinner, one of the investors, a kind older man named Mr. Kamau, pulled Isabel aside. You have a sharp mind, my dear, he said. If you ever consider investing independently, I'd be happy to guide you. Isabel thanked him, her mind buzzing with possibilities. Over the next year, Isabel built a secret financial portfolio with Mr. Kamau's help. She invested wisely, doubling and tripling her initial funds. She created a small company under a different name, hiring discreet staff and keeping everything hidden from Charles. Meanwhile, Charles's empire began to crumble. A risky business venture went south, and several investors pulled out. For the first time in years, Charles faced financial instability. Instead of turning to Isabel for support, he grew even more bitter. You don't understand the stress I'm under, he snapped when she tried to speak to him. But Isabel did understand, more than he realized. As Charles struggled, Isabel's wealth quietly grew. She didn't just want to leave him, she wanted him to feel the same powerlessness he had once inflicted on her. The breaking point came during their 7th wedding anniversary. Charles threw an extravagant party to impress potential investors, though he could barely afford it. Isabel arrived at the party looking stunning, a vision of strength and beauty. Guests whispered about her remarkable transformation. Charles noticed too, but instead of complimenting her, his pride made him sneer. Trying to look young again, Isabel, he muttered under his breath. Too little, too late. Isabel smiled serenely, refusing to rise to his bait. Perhaps, she replied softly, but some things are worth the effort. Throughout the night, Isabel networked quietly, gathering information. She learned which investors were planning to back out of Charles's ventures and which competitors were circling like sharks. By the end of the evening, she had everything she needed to make her move. A month later, Charles received the shock of his life. The very company he had mocked Isabel for dabbling in bought out one of his failing subsidiaries. His investors, lured by Isabel's competence and vision, shifted their support to her. When Charles confronted her, his face was red with rage. You did this to me, he shouted. Isabel stood tall, her voice calm but icy. No, Charles. You did this to yourself. You underestimated me. You mocked me, humiliated me, and thought I'd always depend on you. But I learned from the best, you. Charles's empire collapsed over the next few months, while Isabel's business thrived. Charles's mansion, once a symbol of power, now stood half empty. Most of the staff had left after not being paid for weeks. Bills piled up, and foreclosure notices appeared at the gate. Charles was a shadow of his former self. The confident, arrogant man had been replaced by someone desperate and broken. One evening, he sat at the dining table, staring at an empty plate when Isabel walked in. She was dressed elegantly, glowing with success. "You look incredible," Charles said bitterly. "Thank you," Isabel replied, her tone cool. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "Isabel, please. I was wrong. I was foolish and cruel. But we can fix this together. We built this life once, we can do it again." Isabel shook her head slowly. "No, Charles. I built this life while you tore it apart. You laughed at me when I was vulnerable. You betrayed me. And now, you want me to save you?" Charles's voice cracked. "I have nothing left, Isabel. Please, don't leave me." Isabel looked at him for a long moment, memories flooding her mind, the laughter, the humiliation, the loneliness. "I'm not leaving you with nothing," she said finally. "I'm leaving you with the one thing you gave me, strength. Learn to live with it." With that, she walked out, leaving Charles to face the emptiness he had created. Months later, Isabel stood on the balcony of her new office building. The city stretched out before her, bustling and alive. She had rebuilt herself from the ground up, not just physically, but emotionally and financially. An assistant approached her. "Madam, there's someone asking to see you," she said. Isabel turned to see Charles standing awkwardly in the lobby below. He looked frail, almost unrecognizable. Isabel went down to meet him. "What do you want, Charles?" she asked calmly. He lowered his gaze. "I came to apologize," he said quietly. "I see now how blind I was. I let my pride destroy everything. You deserved better." For a moment, Isabel felt a pang of sympathy. But she also remembered the years of pain he had caused. "I accept your apology," she said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Go and rebuild your life, Charles. Just as I rebuilt mine." Charles nodded, tears in his eyes, and left without another word. As Isabel watched him go, she felt a deep sense of closure. She had proven not only to him, but to herself, that true strength comes from within. Turning back to her office, she whispered to herself, "Never let anyone define your worth. Build yourself, and the world will take notice. Power and respect are not given, they are earned. Mocking and belittling others may bring temporary satisfaction, but in the end, those who rise above with resilience and dignity will always triumph." Isabel's journey reminds us that true revenge isn't about destroying others, but about becoming the best version of yourself and letting your success speak louder than their cruelty.